Welcome to Reason for Truth. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo. Reason for Truth, where the truth comes first and the reasons come last. But listen, where we're always and constantly learning. Because listen, when we stop learning, well, we stop teaching, or at least stop teaching well. Today's truth is really coming right out of a good friend of mine, David Berkowitz. You may know him as Son of Sam. He was once a serial killer. He's now Son of God, and most people know about him. He's probably the most famous, or one of the most famous serial killers. That's what he's known for. But he's also known now as Son of God. Really, very godly man who's doing wonderful things for Christ behind maximum security prison. I'm going to read a little bit about David Berkowitz here. This is right off actually an A&E channel, but I think it says it so well I can't say it better myself. His sentence: Berkowitz, who served 625 to life sentences for murder, was initially confined to a psychiatric ward before spending time in Attica and winding up in Shawangunk Correctional Facility. Now, I will tell you this. David sent me an email years ago saying, hey, it's very frustrating because this is a spiritual issue. It's really not a psychiatric one. And maybe the two play in, but I would say David was right. And as we know, that he had gotten involved with his neighbors, who was a high priest, for satanic high priest, and the dogs told him to kill. We don't want to play with the cult. That's what happened with David. Now, it says here his conversion, Berkowitz claimed on his website, run by an independent webmaster, since he has no internet access, that another inmate suggested a look into Christianity. And after reading Psalm 34 one night in 1987, Berkowitz writes, "When I got up, it felt as if a very heavy but invisible chain that had been around me for so many years was broken." How beautiful is that? Now, how he lives his faith behind bars. It says this: Berkowitz releases videos about his Christian testimony from behind bars, and he's giving advice to young people through letters and counseling other inmates. Notice how he's not making money and he's not creating disaster, right? So some people say, well, he's just a game. What was that a game? How do you figure it? What is he gaining out of this? Yeah, he is gaining in heaven, his heavenly rewards. It says here why he became more religious. How they say. Really, that's the world. I became more religious. They say everything's religious. Christ, but they don't understand relationship with Jesus Christ. As forensic psychiatrist Dr. Rupali Shadna, MD, suggests that occasional professed religious views may be the result of mental illness, as he was sometimes suspected with Berkowitz. It could be that they are psychotic and therefore hyper-religious, stemming from that state, she explains. Another possible explanation, says Dr. Shadha, is that the positive social aspects of religion can inspire a genuine conversion for some. While there are certainly a lot of bad things happen in prison, there's actually a large population of inmates who are heavily involved with genuine attempts at spiritual growth. Now, I'm assuming here, I think pretty clearly that Dr. Rapali Chadna, MD, obviously he's not a believer in Jesus Christ. And I wonder, how does she know about the spiritual realm? I could say possibly she knows quite a bit about the psychiatric ward. So I would assume her answer is skewed towards her specialty. So there could be always, in anybody could be an issue of mental illness and also authentic Christianity. But that was authentic Christianity was discounted here. With David, I think it was surely, for the most part, I think it was spiritual. David's he was discipled by some great Messianic Jews over the years. He's been walking with the Lord 40 years and has a strong track record. Now, I would submit that if David wasn't an authentic Christian, he wouldn't have walked strongly and with such a great track record of living a godly life over the last, 40 years or so. I think that's evidence in and of itself. Easy to make, to play religion for a short period of time. And it's very difficult to really, in the long run, what's the value if it's just to be some kind of psychiatric deal? Anyways, I believe David is very authentically, always felt that way, saved in the Lord Jesus Christ. He's a new man. He's Son of God. He was really Son of Sam, serial killer. No longer. That's not who he is. I'll stand by that. Anyways, so I wanted you to get a good idea of what the world looks at in terms of somebody who's so radically changed versus how the Christian, right, the church, the body of Christ might look at a truly salvific person. Anybody can be saved. Right on death row, a murderer can be saved just as much as an adulteress can be saved, just as much as a person who just plain and simply is a good person by the world's standards, but needs to be saved. And that's the truth with him. But I'm going to read a letter, and I want to encourage you to go out, check out his website, ariseandshine.org, O-R-G. You read about, see David writes articles. He works through a number of people, and that his website goes ahead and speaks. He writes articles, and very encouraging. Listen, a lot of people, I respect David. He's on fire for the Lord, and he's serious about the Lord. He's not a cultural Christian. He's the real deal, that he's known for that in the prison. He's very respectful. He's a chaplain's aide at times. Sometimes he preaches, often involved with evangelism, and he also is assistant, really clerk to the pastor there, so to the chaplain. So it's pretty amazing. I'm going to share with you a little bit. David had gone ahead and shot me a letter, and I'm going to go ahead and share some of that with you, and I'll read a little bit of an article he sent me, and I promised him, and so I'll read that to you. You can make what you want out of it, but I want to encourage you again to go out and check out Rise and Shine, and by permission. I don't share anything from David. I have that agreement with him, but he had sent me a letter. This is going back to November, that he had said, hey, and he sent me one since, but I wanted to share this one with you. He said, feel free to share my letters, and I will only do so when it's respectful of David. And anyways, he says, Dear Brother Steve, I've been rereading, and I'm back in your letter dated October 10th. I sent you a letter last week. I wanted to follow up. It's election day. Ooh, boy, things have changed since then, right? Right now, it's about 4 o'clock. Election results should begin to come in soon. Our nation is in God's hands. We have a Bible study scheduled for this evening, 6 p.m. We will do what we'll do what we've done for the past couple of weeks. We go from man to pray for our nation. Each of us offers a prayer for the president on down. Isn't that great? Despite who's the president. That's wonderful. For some updates, by the way, this is going back to October. It snowed on Sunday. Hopefully we're leaving that behind, right, David? Quite a lot of snow, but it didn't stick this time. Explanation. The snow lasted for several hours. Thick flakes. I've already written a journal entry about it. I'm finished with my entries for all of October 2020. My friend who oversees horizonshine.org gets my journal entries via email and posts them when she has free time. So far, so good. Okay, good. He asked as well. I had asked him about Algeria and Tunisia. David would ask that you pray for the Christians and the Jews there who are being really persecuted quite often by the Muslim population there. He had said nothing much more on that. We just need to be praying for him if you would. So I would ask that you pray for them. He mentioned a case that the other day, a Tunisian man with possible terrorist connections killed and stabbed a handful of people in France, and that was going back. You might have read about that. In addition, there had been recent terrorist attacks in Canada and Vienna, and it goes on. He knows about that. He may be in maximum prison, but he gets the news, and he's got a heart to pray for people. Now, that should tell us something. We should be the same. We could be praying for David and his ministry because he's got quite an audience to witness to, right? And he says, as I live out my days beyond prison walls, it thrills my heart that my story of forgiveness, redemption, and hope is touching lives. I'm very thankful. He said this, but did you know that France is in a total lockdown from COVID? Well, that was October. Man, what a ride it's been since then, huh? And anyways, I had been writing David on a number of things, but it's a great story. I want to read a few things that David had said. He sent me. I don't know if he wrote this because I don't see a name, and so I want to read it because I think he did. And he goes in and he says, avoiding the shipwreck or what to do in a storm, which I think is great. But he put on here, it's great, put a little map. David's doing some great things in prison. And I want to share that with you because we could be praying for him. But again, avoiding shipwreck or what to do in a storm. He's very sober about what he believes and how he lives his Christian walk. And he went into Romans 8:14-15. As for many of us are led by the Spirit, these are sons of God. And he goes in there were 4 main factors which led the crew of Paul's ship to put themselves in danger of destruction. I think he's talking about the shipwreck, right? And in Romans 8:14-15 specifically, he's being guided by the Spirit of God. And he said, number 1, they were dissatisfied with their circumstances, Acts 27-12. Dissatisfaction never dictates actions. Number 2, they were impatient, Acts 27:12. Is love supernatural? Is it patience? Number 3, they failed to heed the word of the Lord, Acts 27:11, and spend time with the Lord. Number 4, they looked to circumstances to give them guidance and succumbed to the deception and favorable circumstances. Acts 27:13 says, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts." I don't know if this is from David, but he felt it important. And I think about David being where he's at. And David's in a tough spot, maximum security penitentiary, he's not going anywhere. But he's talking about being shipwrecked. When I think about shipwrecked on some island, I think about being in jail, although that's going to be worse than jail. But I think that David's heart here is to tell us, listen, when life shipwrecks us, we need to follow God. We need to seek his word. We need to be confident in him. When the snowflakes are big and it's cold, God's going to warm us. He's pretty clear about that. When we're persecuted in Tunisia, rest in the peace of God. We need to be praying for the Jews and the Christians there in Tunisia. And so anyways, David had written me that. I wanted to be clear about what his words were. You can check again his ministry out at ariseandshine.org. Check out David's articles. Listen, I wanted to share that briefly with you. Make sure you check out ariseandshine.org. Be praying for David. Be praying for us here at reasonfortruth.org. Appreciate David, all the work he's doing. Appreciate you for your prayers. God's blessings to you. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo, and this is your Reason for Truth for today.